All right, so thanks everybody for joining up. Happy to take you through what's new in Clarity 2022.1. I'm, as Ashley said, I'm Matt Mason, the product manager. We also have Joe Eikens here on the line, who's the head of our building solutions division. And we're just going to give you the quick update of what's come in this next version of Clarity. We usually do just a quick release history and then talk about the general themes of this release, which in this case are integration enhancements, AUTOCAD enhancements, some things specifically around model health metrics, and then we'll spend a chunk of time talking about this new module that we have for Clarity called Clarity Space Programming, targeted at architects who do space programming. So release history, Clarity has, for many years now, done 2 releases per year, and that continued this year. We've got our 2022.0 release in the spring was made to target the new releases of Revit and AutoCAD and all of the other products, plus some other enhancements. And then our 2022.1 release came out on October 5th, which is a little earlier than normal for us, but we made that to line up with the Autodesk University, which was earlier than normal. And so as a result, I would say that there's maybe a little less features in this release than than normal. But we've got more time now to get more features into the 2023 release, which we would expect would happen in May. So our Clarity 2022.1 release continues to support 5 versions of Revit and Revit Server. We don't know definitively if we're going to keep this 5 version thing going. We had been 4 in the past, but yeah, for right now we've got 5 versions with continuing limited support for Revit 2017 via running an older task server that can still connect up to to the most modern host. Also, for those of you who are still using Revit Server, which is a declining amount of you, but we still have some customers out there that are using Clarity with Revit Server. We did note that Autodesk did show at least a minor sign of life with both support for Windows Server 2019, as well as they've put out the new admin tool, which does not require Silverlight anymore. So those are both nice things. Nice to see that Autodesk is keeping it, even a little bit beyond life support. So let's see. So talking about what we've done in the new Clarity 2022.1 release, there are some notable enhancements around integration and how can we facilitate the delivery of Clarity tasks to new locations, as well as setting up more synchronization kinds of tasks to help you automate the pulling and pushing of data between different systems. The biggest one that we have is a new integration with Ignite, and actually we're still waiting for us to be an official approved vendor in the Ignite marketplace, but that should be any time now. But we do now support 2 mechanisms. One is for delivery of any tasks with a post-task action. You can take the files and say, I want to deliver them to an Ignite site, and that works with our standard sort of OAuth style integration. And then we also have an Ignite sync task where you can say, I want to synchronize between this Ignite folder and somewhere on my local drive, or you can turn around and say, put this, synchronize to my local drive, but then take the results and push to BIM 360 or those kinds of things. So a variety of new things that you can do with these 2 mechanisms for integration. From a Google Drive perspective, we've had a post-task action for a couple years, but we saw a few different customers that were sort of increasing their commitment to Google Drive. And so we added the Google Drive sync task, which similarly you can say I want to synchronize between this file system on disk and Google Drive, or vice versa. And you can also do things like set up the additional mechanism of pull from Google Drive and push to BIM 360, or vice versa. So just sort of rounding out our capabilities around the Google Drive side of things. On the BIM 360 front, one of the things that we took as feedback from customers was that in 90% of the cases, and when people are using a BIM 360 project, and when they want to do a post-task action for BIM 360, that they're going to deliver the files to that same project. And both from a how quickly can you configure it standpoint, but also your ability to copy tasks from project to project and have it just work without having to go in and reconfigure the task action to say, when we bring it over to this new project, that we have to go into the post-task actions and fix which project it was posting into. We felt like that is something that we could address, and we did it just by adding the default option that says deliver, a post-task action, deliver the files into this project. So that will be the default going forward, and that way you can just say this project, and you don't have to worry about picking the hub and project or modifying that when you copy a task. We also did some enhancements to SharePoint and Teams. This was again driven by some specific customers who needed specific capabilities around being able to migrate data out of ProjectWise and into Teams or OneDrive or SharePoint. So you can now do that directly, out of ProjectWise and into SharePoint. And we did add support for metadata mapping. So if you've got attributes that are coming from BIM 360 or from ProjectWise or from any number of places, and you're pushing them into Teams or OneDrive or SharePoint, as long as those, that attribute mapping has been defined by you, you can map that data and have that data go directly into attributes that are defined on the SharePoint side of things. So we hope that people will take advantage of that as well. Talking a little bit on the AutoCAD side, this release continues to push forward a little bit our support for AutoCAD as a first-class citizen within Clarity. This is something that we held off on for a long time because we kind of felt like, hey, it's 2021, isn't everybody got their AutoCAD stuff figured out in terms of automation and that kind of thing? But we were eventually convinced that no, people wanted the same kind of thing that we were doing for Revit for all these years, done for AutoCAD. So we've pushed that a little bit further in this release with a couple of tasks around adding support for metrics, model health metrics on the AutoCAD side. So things like file size or number of layouts, anonymous blocks, bad dimensions, reg apps. These are things that we can now check and report on as metrics within Clarity. We also added some metrics in a separate task specific to people using Civil 3D. So most of these are really more sort of measurements of complexity, number of structures, pipes, surfaces, data shortcuts, but then broken data shortcuts and that kind of thing is a measure of health. And then finally, we've offered a basic Clarity Client add-in for AutoCAD so that you can connect up to Clarity, you can kick off tasks, you can do the show project sort of mechanism where you can jump to your Clarity project. So this is really a start to again sort of pushing a little bit further on the AutoCAD side of things. And all of these metrics-oriented features, you'll find that we've now separated the metrics into two groups. You'll have AutoCAD metrics and Revit metrics as separate items to manage and set up firm standards and that kind of thing. So yeah, moving forward, another interesting thing that we added, and this harkens back to a feature that I think we introduced in about Clarity 2021, but there wasn't really anything that you could do with it other than opt into it. So we added this share metric data feature back in 2021, and that if you opted into it, it would anonymously share with us information about your your model health metrics. And that's, no information about, what customer you are, what project it is, or anything. It's all, 100% anonymized. But yeah, if you did opt into this, then, we wanted to build some things where you could basically compare yourself to other people in the community. And we really have the first implementation of that feature since we've been now collecting data for for a year or a year and a half. So if you are opted into this kind of anonymous metric sharing, you get to have the benefit of taking a look at a few different things. One is within the community metrics or within the firm standard metrics, you can check and see which ones of the firm standards are you using, and how does that compare to other firms? What percentage of other firms are using these same metrics? So you can kind of get a sense of, well, maybe 56% of firms are using, the number of CAD links metric. Does that mean that maybe we should also? And right from this window, you can just say, hey, we'll add that to our list. Check, 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 and you can figure out what you'd like to add. So it gives you a sense of what are other firms using. We're also starting to ask people in their server settings about what kind of firm are you? Architecture firm, construction firm, an engineering firm, a variety of different options. And so we should be able to, going forward after we get a little bit of data on that front, say, show me just firms like me and what firms like me are doing, if that's what you're interested in. So we do have some pictures as to what percentage of firms are using different model metrics. And then within a particular firm standard, you might want to know, for example, where do you draw the line in the green, yellow, red sort of range of what's acceptable, unacceptable, and in between. We're also sharing with you sort of a rough, an average of what's the range of what people have for their green setting, what's the range of what people have for their red setting and the average. So trying to give you a picture of, of what everybody else is doing to help you inform you as to what you might do. So again, you'll see these things just if you've opted in to share your own data anonymously as well. Moving forward, other small features in the base of Clarity 2022.1 include we had some requests around worksets, our worksets dialog to be able to pick and choose worksets. You kind of, when you looked at our basic kind of view of things, you got the list of all the worksets from all the models that had been exported in the system. And if you've got tons of models and if you've got partner models and everything else, it was maybe a little hard to figure out which are the worksets that I really want. And so we've added an additional model filter tab where you can go in and pick specific models, and we'll show you just the worksets associated with those models to help you go in and pick specific things and understand exactly where those worksets apply or don't apply. We've added some additional support for database export of things like fabricated parts. We had some customer requests for Revit schema data, what schemas are in use within Revit. And we have also improved a bit on the metadata mapping configuration. In particular, you're no longer required to to give us a path to your metadata mapping file. We just read it from a standardized location. So things like that, and a bunch of other sort of smaller fit and finish kind of features that we don't even have space for. So that's really what's in the core of Clarity 2022.1 in this release. But then, the other thing that we're going to talk about is the Clarity space programming side of things. So I hope that at least a percentage of you are interested in space programming and what that might do for you. So Clarity space programming is something that we've been wanting to do for a number of years, but we really wanted it to be driven by customers. And we finally had 3 existing Clarity customers that sort of came together and said they wanted to see a better option for doing space programming than what they had available. And DLR was one of them. The other 2 had not given us permission to name drop, but yeah, they're large firms in different segments, and they had done various solutions to this over time, whether it was big enterprise products or medium-sized products, or even the sort of do-it-yourself Dynamo and an Excel sort of approach, but they wanted something more like what Clarity could deliver. And when we look at sort of what our big picture goals of this was, that we wanted to take a lot of that semi-structured kind of data, a lot of data running around out there in Excel for space programming, and get it into a structured and consistent format within the Clarity database. We felt like we could build some high quality Revit tools to help map and work with that data. We wanted to build a first-class API for automating and manipulating and updating that data, whether it's with Revit or any other system that you use. And then we also felt like we had tools that we could build, as well as existing tools that we could leverage for looking at actual versus plan or other calculations like that. So we really found, as we dug in, that at most firms, planners are still typically working in Excel to define the space program. And then, it's largely thrown over the wall to Revit designers who, sort of try to make the design fit into the available space. And then ultimately people need to monitor and keep track of how did we do in terms of actual versus plan. And that's what's going on out there. We felt like we could help with that by sort of taking a few different pieces and building a standardized kind of process. First part of which is just defining your project and figuring out how you want to enter that data. We still want to support people working in Excel, because I think Excel is hard to give up on. People love Excel. So we wanted to build first-class importing tools to bring the data into a Clarity space program, but also have good tools for just designing it ourselves and adding the data in ourselves, but then also some value-added kinds of tools once you have the data imported into Clarity. By the way, people inside of Clarity who have space programming will see another entry in their project, sort of sidebar. On the Revit side of things, we wanted to give tools for generating geometry, to sort of lay out the blocks, which you could then arrange into the right orientation, while all along managing the actuals versus the plan, and then do things like check adjacencies and help with FF&E and that kind of thing. And then finally, providing web tools for tracking the actual versus program, tracking room data sheets, and then we really want to build this out so that firms that are really data savvy can standardize and compare across projects and sort of learn from the data that they've put into Clarity. These are the kinds of data that we're tracking across all of the projects. And as I mentioned, you can take this data and populate it, from Excel, from an API, manually input, And we try to have some, some different approaches to this, because we felt like firms either, had sort of structured data where you list out room types and departments and that kind of thing, and the actual requirements were things that referenced room types. But other firms just had really just a flat spreadsheet of, here's the spaces and how many and what the areas are, and this is all that there was. And so we can deal with either approach, and we'll just sort of infer the structure, out of this single spreadsheet. We can deal with custom parameters and extra things that you're tracking within your program and you'd like to have mapped into Revit, or other things sort of used throughout the process. And again, once we've got the data inside of Clarity, we wanted to give you different ways of looking at the data. So everything from being able to edit the project directly inside of the web environment, stacking charts so that you can see where departments or functional areas are allocated across your project, and then the reports and everything else, pivot tables, all that inside of the Clarity web environment. From a Clarity environment inside of Revit, if you have Clarity Space Programming, you'll see extra tools showing up here inside of the Revit environment, and that will let you go in and figure out how do you take the the families that you have that you'd like to use to represent spaces when you're doing that sort of conceptual level design. How do I map the data between what exists in the Clarity Space Program into the corresponding spots inside of Revit? So, and we can work with masses, generic models, rooms, areas, all those different kinds of geometry. We can help you auto-generate the data, help you get, help you place stuff, although, a lot of this is still, still manual, but you get to arrange them. And then we give you tools to synchronize that data as actual data back to Clarity so that we can provide some reporting on that side. We can check inside of Revit, how are we doing actual versus planned spaces. We can check for adjacency. So if you've got adjacency rules about what types of space need to be near to other spaces, or might be near to other spaces or should not be near to other spaces, we can check that adjacency. And we use, when you're sort of in the conceptual stage of just dropping blocks in place, we use just kind of a simple straight line kind of distance. But once you do have a more, sort of detailed design where we can get into corridors and that kind of thing, then we actually use Revit path of travel for the adjacency. And then tools to help you get to that point. So when you start, you're working with just say mass families or something like that. But if you'd like to convert to rooms and have us, sort of try to give you a quick, conversion, including making the walls and that kind of thing, we can do that. And then finally, FF&E requirements. So if you do put in the FF&E requirements, by room type, we've got the ability to go in and check to see what's what's in there, what's missing, help you find families that are not loaded but you have somewhere in your corporate content library, and then go in and help you pick and place things either all at once or just piece by piece. Back on the web side of things, we've got a variety of tools and reports to be able to look at things like, how am I doing against between the program and the actuals. Let's see, plugging into Clarity data sheets, all sorts of things like that from the reporting side of things. And another big feature that people asked about was tracking over the history of the project, the lifespan of the project, that there was a lot of data that need to be tracked down so that you could, if at the end of the project the client said, well, wait a second, when did that change happen? That you have the full history of all of the changes to the program over the life of the project, as well as the actuals over the life of the project. And so we have tools to let you track that data and look at it over time and go back to get to, okay, this change happened on this date. So ultimately, Clarity is is still like it has been. We've really just added this Clarity Space Programming as a new module. It works on top of Clarity, so you still have to have the base Clarity, but this adds some new features specifically around space programming to your Clarity kind of environment. So much like the project-wise integration or the owner data portal or that kind of thing. So yeah, so that's the quick version. I do anticipate that we will have a deeper dive kind of session in the coming weeks. We also do have some materials on our website at imaginet.com/clarity, specifically about space programming if you're interested in the interim, or you can always reach out and talk to us. We're happy to show it off to you in more detail. But we are going to have some upcoming webinars to talk more about it. So yeah, so look out for those going forward. So with that, I'm going to open up the floor, and I'm happy to go in and show the product in more detail or answer questions, whatever the audience wants. Joe, if you're there and can say, did we get any questions in the
right now we have one question in the queue. Right. I'll start off by saying, if you've got any additional questions, let's ferociously quickly type them in there. Let's get them going. I
don't need questions. I'm not one of those needy people. Feels like maybe I just answered all the questions going forward. So.
Yeah, if you don't have any questions, maybe you can just chat in the panel to Matt or to the panelists or whomever, saying, yes, Matt, you're good, we validate you.
Again, I'm not needy. So. But if you want to do it for fun, go ahead.
Well, yeah, of course. There are a few more coming through, but let me start with the first one, which is a common question that we have when talking about space programming. And the question is, would we say that Clarity Space Programming is similar to DeRufus?
Yeah, I would say that there's similar to DeRufus. DeRufus has been around for I don't know, 25 years. I mean, they're a very mature enterprise level product. So I would not say that we're at all equivalent to them in all the things that they can do. I think that said, the customers that really steered and funded the development, I think they were all DeRufus customers at one point. They all had some DeRufus kind of experience, and so I think they wanted something that was in the same space but was perhaps simpler on one hand, that it was easier for people to sort of pick it up and use it on a project without having to sort of commit to the whole DeRufus methodology. And then there's also kind of a cost issue. Ultimately, I didn't mention this, but this Clarity Space Programming module is a single cost item, just like everything else in sort of Clarity. It's once you've added it to the host, it's unlimited projects, unlimited users. So there's no there's not a per project or per square foot kind of cost to it. So I think there's overlap. I mean, and I think DeRufus, I feel like DeRufus is kind of steering, or at least they tell me they're sort of steering less and less in the space programming space, but it feels like there's overlap there.
Right.
That answers the question. I kind of meandered over that that kind of thing, but yeah, we definitely sort of looked at it and said that DeRufus is absolutely, I mean, sort of the enterprise king of large scale kind of space programming things. But yeah, we felt like we could build something that would be sort of better than what people did themselves with with Excel and Dynamo, but not maybe at the level of complexity and everything that and cost that DeRofus has on the high end.
Cool. Which leads to a few different versions of the same question, which is, well, one of it, you kind of said it, but not specifically, just to make sure. It is a separate module. It is not included in somebody's subscription of
Correct.
Clarity.
Yes. Existing customers would need to pay an additional amount to get this feature.
And
yep, apologies about that. Yeah. It's something where it's going to be an ongoing source of effort for us to to continue to build this out over time, and we will. We are going to continue to invest in it, but it's something that we feel like is also out of the whole list of all the Clarity customers. I mean, it's really just applicable to architects who do space programming work. So
yeah. And is the associated cost for that module something that you have at your fingertips and would be able to share here, or should we say reach out to your account manager?
I'm gonna do this just so that you talk to your salesperson. Sorry, but yeah, it's an annual pricing thing. But yeah, talk to your salesperson, and in particular, I mean, we've got customers that are Clarity Enterprise customers and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think better to just reach out to your Clarity account rep or send me an email afterwards, and I'll figure something out for you.
Cool. And one other space program question for the moment, then we'll switch tracks and probably come back. But there was a question of, is there a trial for this? Could we just try it on a project and
yes,
see?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a Clarity. I don't know about on a project. We'd have to work that out, but yeah, we've got like a 30-day trial that we can easily set up. You do have to be on Clarity 2022.1, but yeah, we figured people would want to try it out and and see. So yes, it is possible to add the module on a trial basis and then keep it or remove it after that.
Yep. And I'll say for anybody who is thinking about it, if you've got that question of what is the price, or how do I get a trial, or can I see that in more in depth and a little bit more of a personal, private presentation, reach out to your account rep. Let's set something up and roll with that for sure. Switching away from the space programming for a moment, somebody asking you to cast your future vision here, and what does the future expansion of tasks on Forge task servers look like?
So yeah, so some of that is happening on our Clarity Cloud product, which we sort of did the 1.0 release of that in June or so. And we do, as a side note, I don't have the diagram here, but we do let you today on-premise Clarity, we do let you take some of your tasks and send them to the cloud as sort of a, with Forge, as sort of a virtual task server. That is something that we think will continue to grow. We're tightly tied into Autodesk in terms of continuing to work with them, because we think that at least a decent percentage of the customers would like that, to sort of stop having to manage Clarity task servers on premise if it could all just be sent to the cloud. That said, there's still a lot of limitations on on what's there right now in Forge. For a long time, for example, you couldn't print to a PDF in the cloud because there were no print drivers. Now that's sort of gone away in Revit 2022 and higher, when you can do the sort of direct export. But again, that's 2022 and higher only. And I think you'll find that it's still a little sluggish in comparison to to printing on your own machine with a nice graphics card to a Revit to PDF. So there's some issues like that that are still being worked out, and still it's still fairly early, I think, in there. But we're committed to it. We expect to to support live Revit models, for example, or live BIM 360 models when Autodesk makes that available, hopefully this year. So there's some growth on the Autodesk side there, and we're going to grow with it. We feel like it's going to be still a few years out, like 3 or 4 or 5 before before you would really have the same level of capability and that kind of thing as you do on the on-premise task server kind of world. But more and more, that will be an option, and it'll be an option that we support. And also, I think the other thing to keep in mind is that in the cloud, with that cloud-based processing, the costs are variable. You pay based on the CPU hours of your task processing. So while you're sort of giving up on the hardware side of it, you do sort of introduce some element of uncertainty of what's it going to cost you, sort of month in and month out. But yeah, we're excited and committed, even though it's still relatively early in the game in terms of running Revit tasks in the cloud.
Cool. Keeping to the theme of plans, is there any immediate plan to utilize the Bluebeam API now available?
So yes, there is a plan for that. We actually had done that work, probably 2 years ago. And then after we did the work, we realized, and forgive me, I'm forgetting the name of the various Bluebeam levels, but we realized
Bluebeam
that
Extreme. Was it Extreme?
That, or was it something else?
Enterprise.
And basically, you had to have the top, in order to use this API, it turned out that you had to have the top level, sort of Bluebeam subscription. And it, as we looked around, almost nobody had it. And so we pulled it back out of the product before it got released. But it's still there, and it is still something that we look at, and we did hear fairly recently that that restriction had been perhaps removed. So yeah, the idea of being able to push Clarity task data out of Clarity and into like a Bluebeam session or something like that, a review session. I think that should be, I would hope that would be in the next release.
And we've got a number of people letting us know it's Bluebeam Prime or Bluebeam Studio Prime.
Thank you. Yes, that's
as
right.
Opposed to Optimus Prime. But anyway.
And if you're interested in that, definitely let us know, because we dealt with some customers in the past that were driving us to put that out. But yeah, we'd probably be looking for people who want to look at it in this next release cycle.
Next one, are we seeing an expansion of post-action tasks to other cloud tools like Autodesk Construction Cloud and other based CM tools like Procore?
Well, I mean, so Procore, we have that today. At least, there's a post-task action for Procore. You can deliver files into the Procore document library. So that's and we also have a Procore sync task to do a similar kind of thing. The Autodesk Construction Cloud things, I suspect that already works today, because I think they use that same mechanism.
Yes.
You know, so our typical like BIM 360 upload task, you know, you're going to be able to pick your, you know, the project that has, you know, Autodesk, you know, ACC, you know, kind of thing that will all, you know, work similarly. So I think the answer is yes on both of those. But you know, if there's something that you know, you're looking for that we're not quite doing, then definitely let us know, because yeah, we do want to you know, to keep pushing further on that with whatever people are needing.
Yeah, and just to confirm for everybody, if you don't have it in front of you right now, I'm just looking at the list, the places where we can start placing files after we've produced them through the task. We've got BIM 360, which is Autodesk Construction Cloud, BIM Trackbox, Dropbox, Ignite, Google Drive, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, local file servers, FTP, Procore, SharePoint, again, two different types of SharePoint, and then also, did I say project-wise? If I didn't, project-wise.
Yeah, project-wise.
So there's a whole host of things that we can do. It's just a matter of if there is something that's not there on the list that you need, let's go with it. And that there's a number of customers that are using just the move copy files to take the files, move them to a location that another unnamed, whatever it might happen to be, piece of software is also monitoring, and using that folder as a transfer handoff to go to project X, and then it sends the files to wherever they need to go.
Right. I mean, for example, what's their names?
Well, there's share file sync, and then oh, I know what you're talking about.
I came up with their names. They're everywhere. Info Exchange.
Emails, email tracking.
No, Info Exchange is
okay.
Is I'm embarrassed.
Yeah,
I can't come up with who makes Info Exchange, but you guys know who it is because everybody's got it, or everybody had it in the past.
Thanks,
Format.
Josh.
Yeah, so that's one where you know, we had wanted to do a deeper integration, but for some reason they've always been sort of resistant. So they said, you know, hey, just, you know, we showed them this list, and they said just have people, you know, do a move copy files into, you know, a folder that Newform is watching, and Newform will pick up the files from there, and you know, and send things on their way from there. So, as an example.
Okay. There was a question, it was a little bit earlier on, but is this ready to install today? The answer is yes, whether we're talking about the .1 release or the space programming module, they are ready.
Both are ready, yes. So yeah, the .1 came out on October 5th. We did have a hiccup that was found last week. It's really just affecting a percentage of customers where, you know, doing an upgrade where IIS took too long to shut down. But we've resolved that issue just, I think, yesterday. So yeah, so it's all available, and you should see when you do the install, there'll now be an option for you to pick space programming as a feature during the install. So
cool. Next question: any chance of incorporating build change notices for BIM 360 models, like with on-prem Revit server models?
That's interesting. I'm not sure that that's possible. That's interesting. We might have to look at it from the standpoint of Clarity Client. If you have the Clarity Client installed, we do send like Sync to Central info out there, and that Sync to Central info does have the Revit build number on it. That wouldn't be everything. I think the other places where we do it with Revit Server and with file-based, I think we're sort of watching regardless, even if you don't have the Clarity Client. But for BIM 360, we could probably do it, but you'd have to have the Clarity Client in place for us to know that somebody checked in a change. Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, I'll look into that a little bit afterwards. Also, let me also pitch that Imagine It help race. If I go up to imagineit.helprace.com, this is our community site. So I definitely recommend people joining this and checking this out, and add your ideas up here, because you can look at other people's ideas and you can upvote them, and we do give sort of precedence to ideas that are posted on here and then upvoted by by more than one customer. So yeah, let me definitely promote that people should should be putting ideas on here. Yes, and thank you, Sherry. Yes, if you are inside of Clarity, there's the feedback icon up in the upper right here, and that will drop you in the same place. So, all right. Yeah, what else do we have, Joe? Anything else?
That is everything that we have in our queue. Pause for a moment, do a little bit of song and dance if anybody's got anything else that they need to ask. I will state, like for the record, put it into the Q&A panel, but Bob did say, yes, Matt, you are a great presenter. So
okay,
you don't need it, but you're getting the affirmation anyway.
Well, I'll take it. So, yeah, so I'm not going to reject it or anything. Appreciate it.
I'm not seeing anything else,
Okay.
so I will say thank you, everybody. If there's anything else that's coming around, please reach out to your account rep and they can navigate you to the correct person, whoever that might happen.